Welcome to Shad's Guitar Show. Whether it's the gear or the players who made the gear famous, join me each week as we discuss all things guitar. Well, hey everyone, and welcome into yet another exciting episode of Shad's Guitar Show. I am your host, Shad Worrell, and you are here, and we are together, and that is awesome. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, which I think is going to be a lot of fun and maybe a little different. Today we're going to talk about something that I haven't really heard anybody talk about before, but I'm sure there's plenty of threads out there on the internet about the topic. But anyway, I wanted to dive into a conversation today about famous players who used the wrong guitar. So imagine picking up a Les Paul. What players come to mind? Are you imagining Beano-era Clapton? Are you imagining Jimmy Page plugged into a Marshall stack? Maybe it's Peter Green, Mike Bloomfield, Mick Taylor, Gary Moore, Billy Gibbons, or Joe Bonamassa. You get the idea. And going a step further, does picking up a Les Paul cause you to play certain things? Of course, I'm using the Les Paul as an example, but you could ask the same question about any guitar. Does picking up a Strat make you start playing like Hendrix or SRV or John Mayer? Does picking up a Telecaster cause you to start playing all the country-flavored licks you know? And how about a Jazzmaster? Are you trying to sound like the Ventures or Sonic Youth? You get the idea. Most of us associate certain guitar styles with certain players and genres. But I wanted to discuss 5 players who used a certain style of guitar in a context that we don't imagine as being, well, correct. Number 1, Ted Green and his Blackguard Telecaster. Ted played sophisticated and intricate jazz chord melodies on a vintage Fender Telecaster, while most of his contemporaries were using their tried-and-true archtop jazz boxes. Ted's tone was impeccable, and he's been cited as a big influence by a vast number of modern jazz players who've also been inspired to use Telecasters for jazz, one of my favorite being Julian Lage. Number 2, Johnny Ramone and his Mosrite. One of the pioneers and arguably biggest influences in punk rock guitar was Johnny Ramone. He helped craft enduring punk rock anthems that endure to this day on a 1965 Mosrite Ventures model, a guitar that most people would associate with surf music or garage rock. And okay, maybe the Ramones aren't too far removed from garage rock, but most of the bands in the early punk scene, the Clash, the Sex Pistols, the Buzzcocks, well, they were all playing Gibsons. Number 3, Chris Stapleton and his Jazzmaster. Okay, when I say country music, what guitar immediately comes to mind? The Telecaster, no contest, right? While there have been periods of players using other brands and models, no single guitar accounts for more influence on country music than the Tele. Enter Mr. Chris Stapleton and his Jazzmaster. Now, the Jazzmaster has been associated with various styles over the years, though ironically never jazz. I'd venture to say that few players would mention country music and the Jazzmaster in the same conversation. Chris plays a variety of reissued JMs live, but his favorite is his pre-CBS 1964 Jazzmaster that's been with him since the beginning. Albert King and Lucy. At a time when most of his contemporaries were playing either Gibson ES-style guitars or Strats and Telecasters, Albert's weapon of choice was the Flying V. He famously named his 1959 Carina V Lucy, which many historians believe is named after Lucille Ball. Albert King primarily played a Gibson Flying V because of its comfort, playability, and striking visual appeal, rather than just its tone. Standing at 6 foot 4 inches and weighing 250 pounds, the large, unique V-shape matched his velvet bulldozer persona and helped distinguish him from bluesmen using more traditional instruments. Plus, being left-handed, the V lends itself to being played upside down easily since it's effectively the same shape either way. And number 5, Willie Nelson and Trigger. At a time when most country songwriters were playing steel string dreadnoughts or jumbos, like the Martin D28 or Gibson J45 or J200, Willie's songwriting companion was the legendary and battle-scarred 1969 Martin nylon string N20 that he has played throughout his entire career. Willie named his guitar Trigger as a nod to Roy Rogers' famous horse, joking that since Rogers had a horse named Trigger, this was his own trusty steed. There are inevitably a host of players that we could reference when talking about the great guitar mismatch, and I'd love it if you'd comment with some players that come to your mind. Ultimately, these players prove that the right player can take what many would consider to be the wrong guitar and make history with it. If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to leave a review. That helps the show so much, and I'm grateful for you taking the time. Also, I've got lots of other great content over at Shad's Guitar Show on YouTube, so go subscribe there, as well as follow me on Instagram at Shad's Guitar Show. And until next time, remember, the best guitarist is the one having the most fun.